As with the Fellowship of the Ring, following the studio title cards, the narrative begins with a black screen and Lady Galadriel's voiceover. Specifically, Lady Galadriel in Fellowship and Grendel in Rings of Power. The first thing to stand out between the two is that it takes 4 seconds for Lady Galadriel to speak.
The world is changed.
Leading us to the story by setting up the world, factions, premise and stakes involved. Rings of Power, on the other hand, takes 17 seconds to accomplish a vaguely similar function.
Nothing is evil in the beginning.
17 seconds is no great length of time in the grand scheme of a 50-hour yarn, allegedly planned by the showrunners. However, this is a regular symptom in the show. Time is spent lingering on things that are otherwise unnecessary and becomes an exercise in wasting time. When these wasted seconds are stacked up by the end of the season, the minutes where nothing of consequence is taking place become substantial, and one has to wonder just how much of the 50 hours are actual story compared to padding, elongating the runtime. During that same time in Fellowship, Lady Galadriel speaks about the degree to which the world is changing around her, establishing the story takes place in a world in transition. With Fellowship being a film and Rings of Power a TV show, a case could be made that because it's a TV show, time could be spent not rushing through the narrative. However, it is precisely because it is a TV show that it cannot afford to waste time, because unlike a cinema, while at home, the viewer is able to switch to another program. Time can be spent building character and the narrative to a greater degree, but it cannot be wasted doing nothing. When that is the initial impression set up by the show, intended or not, the message is clear. The filmmakers are not respecting the viewer's time. In contrast, Game of Thrones starts with 3 men on horseback waiting for a gate to open. Based on how long it takes for it to be lifted, its weight is conveyed effectively, informing us that it was made to keep something formidable out, establishing the constitution of the men venturing forth. Meanwhile, the harsh snowfall symbolizes a sense of danger awaiting them, creating a foreboding scene that implies danger for the characters on screen. 17 seconds. Silent establishes the season the scene is taking place in, introduces a character's demeanor, and how she treats her family while departing her home. Her school uniform gives a general idea of her age and where she is likely heading, revealing the time of day, all while soft snowfall indicates a sense of nostalgia as if this scene is a flashback. 17 seconds.
Nothing is evil in the beginning.
An interesting choice of word, originally spoken by Elrond during the Council of the Fellowship regarding Sauron's origin. This may be used to set up the path the show follows in leading to the Lord of the Rings, depicting Numenor's corruption through Sauron's influence, perhaps even seeing how he was molded by Morgoth. Changing who said these words and the context they were said in is something present in the Peter Jackson trilogy, where
The world is changed.
was originally spoken by Treebeard in Return of the King when saying farewell to Lady Galadriel and Celeborn. In the film, the line has an ominous feel compared to the melancholic tone in the books. As such, rather than focusing on accuracy to the source, it would instead be the execution of writing in the show. The show introduces children in a bright environment surrounded by nature playing Marco Polo, or something similar. An interesting game because it provides an opportunity to establish what their common abilities are and whether they have particular gifts, such as that of Elrond's foresight, or Lady Galadriel's ability to reach others' minds. This does not happen. Pausing, they look over to young Grendel. Why did they stop playing at that point? Why is she not interested in joining them? Were they waiting for her to do something and so started playing in the interim? What is clear is the separation between Grendel and the children.
She's not like the other girls.
Just like every other girl in mainstream media.
Put a chick in it and make her name it gay!
Why this separation exists is perhaps something we will explore in good time within this chunky show.
And there was a time when the world was so young, there had not yet been a sunrise.
Despite the attempt at making things seem more fantastical, what is the context of all this? How young is the world? How is their light so bright without a sun? We may one day get the answers to these questions.
But it is not this day.
But even then, there was light.
The show cuts to Grendel as these words are said. The literal interpretation of the line is regarding the light cast on the land from the mysterious source. The more meta-interpretation when combining the line with the visual is that she is the light that would bring joy and hope. While on the rock she is folding paper, crafting something out of it while talking to herself, likely reciting the instructions memorized at an earlier date.
Well, is it finished yet?
Based on this, they had been waiting for her to finish making it. They are both aware of each other and what they are doing, yet, from how wary the children are of her and how unsociable Grendel is, they seem to not like each other. Grendel in response walks to the stream and places a paper boat on it while the younglings move closer.
Even you couldn't possibly believe their old scrap would float.
Enunciation is paramount when speaking as it enables others to comprehend one another, something lacking in the delivery of the boy's line. That said, he is young and there is room for improvement. Ultimately, the director decides what is good enough to be in the finished product. Allegedly.
It's not going to float, it's going to sail.
If we are going to be pedantic, yes, technically it will sail along the stream's current, provided it is well made. Unless she is implying the boat has a mechanism allowing it to travel on its own, regardless of the strength of the water's flow. Anyway, the boat transforms as it is carried along. Why? Does this help it function better? Why build it so it transforms while floating? I'm sorry, sailing. When it could have been made as it was meant to be from the start. Or is it the act of transformation that is impressive? Meanwhile, the children run after it while Grendel walks along the stream wearing a smug expression. Attempting to sink it, the children throw rocks at it. Are they simply bullies? If so, this is likely something that has occurred before, meaning she should be expecting this. Despite her efforts to stop them, the ship is hit and sunk.
I told you it wouldn't float.
This is an attempt by the writers at fast-tracking Grendel as a sympathetic character for the audience. In 2 minutes worth of screen time, it has been established
She's not like the other girls.
and is bullied. In contrast, during the same amount of time in the first episode of 86, it starts with a battle where a commander is guiding his troops remotely. The weaponry is introduced, the style of battles are set up, the identity of the people fighting in the front lines, the 86, are revealed, and the attitude towards them from their commander is established, seeing them as expendable tools to throw at the enemy. This is contrasted by an idyllic world a young woman lives in, someone in the military herself from her clothes and how she behaves, highlighting her dedication to her post. Meanwhile, from their time together in the morning, her relationship with her mother is tense. The population of the city she lives in has a similar appearance to her. Combining this with the opening minute and the soldiers, there is an underlying prejudice directed towards the 86, where they are seen as lesser by virtue of the way they look. All in 2 minutes. Taking things slow is not a bad thing, but there is a difference between taking things slow, allowing the viewer to marinate on a scene, and nothing of worth happening. If bullying was required, starting with the question of what she is doing rather than if the boat is ready, followed up by the children teasing her for continually trying to make it float only for it to succeed this time, prompting their reaction to throw stones to sink it would work better, all the more so if she does not retaliate as a result. The character dynamics would be clear, context provided, and Grendel's mental resilience would be highlighted in the process. Here she retaliates, starting a fight. Which begs the question, if she was prone to fighting, why would the children bully her? Bullies are well known for picking on people that fight back.
Lose your footing again, Galadriel.
A curious line from her brother. It could be an attempt to shield his sister from the consequences of starting a fight. Then again, consequences for fighting are not established, so it could be simultaneously harsh or lenient.
Don't worry.
Sometime later, they are sitting.
It was a good ship, sister.
Calling it a good ship can only be taken in a manner where he is trying to cheer her up because he was not present until the fight broke out. Alternatively, if he was present the entire time, why wait as long as he did? Was he anticipating such a thing to occur and was heading towards the field to mediate the encounter, implying he understands Grendel's temper and wanted to defuse the situation before things escalated further?
I made it just as you taught me.
Having him teach her how to make a ship shows their closeness, where he is willing to spend time with her, and she in turn is appreciative enough to take heed of his lessons, despite the age gap, which, considering they are elves, may be great.
Do you know why a ship floats and a stone cannot?
Buoyancy would be the obvious answer, however the writers opt for a more metaphorical explanation.
The stone sees only downward.
Using metaphor is a great way of conveying an idea in a manner veiled under character and visual instead of being blunt. It can be a powerful tool in a writer's arsenal if it is used well and presented with clarity. In The Haunting of Bly Manor episode 6, The Jolly Corner, Jamie explains the process of raising a moonflower to bloom to Danny, starting with,
Bloody hard to grow in England.
Danny, upon admiring the flowers, lets out,
Worth it.
Jamie makes clear the life cycle of a moonflower plant, blooming for 2 months in the year, at night, with every bud only once. Come morning, all the flowers visible now would be dead.
For real?
Once the 2 months pass, the entire plant would be dead and she would have to plant and grow one anew. Understanding the effort needed to grow such a flower,
That's a lot of work for a flower that only blooms once.
Jamie is someone who naturally keeps a barrier between herself and the people around her, while gradually warming up to them over time. However, no matter how close people get, that barrier is present to prevent herself from getting hurt. Danny closes herself from positive emotion due to her guilt towards the death of her ex-fiancé and the circumstances leading up to it, concluding happiness is not something she is deserving of as a result. As such, despite being drawn to each other, they are unable to overcome their respective barriers. This is made more complicated when each time things are progressing, something would interrupt them, causing one or both of them to recoil. Whether it be the ghost haunting Danny, which she tries to face and move on from, or the events in the manor warranting everyone's attention. Jamie too wishes to overcome the barriers that are preventing her from opening herself up fully to Danny. Which brings us to the point of the conversation at hand.
It's what people feel like to me.
This is the first time Jamie has been this open in the show, and after everything that has happened between them, she doubles down on the point she is making.
Exhaustive effort, very little to show for it.
This includes herself. Over the course of this monologue, one by one she takes down the bricks of the emotional wall she had built over the years, revealing to Danny her past in its entirety, the tumultuous family she grew up with, the time she spent in foster care, and the years in prison, where she found a fondness towards gardening. Plants are simple and make sense. When effort is put into helping them grow, they do in fact grow. Where people in comparison are exhaustive and are not worth it. Coming to the end of the monologue, the point of this outing is made clear. Occasionally, as with the moonflower in front of them, there might be someone worth putting the effort into, culminating with Jamie and Danny kissing each other. This scene manages to weave in metaphor, blunt exposition and a character's backstory in such a way that they are all interconnected, starting and ending with the moonflower, using it as a metaphor for the one person that is worth putting the extra effort into by singling it out from the rest of the plants under her custody in Bly Manor. Combine this metaphor with her upbringing and the plants hold that much more meaning in the context of Jamie's life, where she loves the plants around her and will do what it takes to maintain those that she cares about, while when it comes to that special someone, as with the moonflower, she will devote the added time and effort to nourish it so that it blooms, even if it is for a moment. The metaphors are all clear and well executed to create a fantastic scene.
I fucking love it.
Here, the character is comparing two unrelated things when asking about their functionality towards floating, something uncommon among stones. Furthermore, one is a part of nature's natural formation, while another is man-made. It is as comparative as asking why an apple is edible while a sword is not.
The darkness of the water is vast and irresistible.
The thought of treasure and secrets hidden beneath can draw the curiosity of many, though if he is trying to assert being inflexible and hard-headed as a stone would cause you to sink, this metaphor may have worked in isolation.
The ship feels the darkness as well.
Having originally started the metaphor with seeing, he shifts to the ship feeling, creating an inconsistency. If the ship feels the darkness, does it have the capability to see, or can it only feel? Does the stone have the capability to feel or just see? What are these two objects meant to equate to in the context of Grendel?
Striving moment by moment to master her, pull her under.
A third entity is brought up into the equation, where the darkness too has a will of its own. Yet, it is only spoken of in the context of the ship and never the stone. Does it have no effect on the stone because it looks down and so welcomes it, or is it a completely different reason altogether? While the deep water is often thought of as uncaring, here it is presented as something distinctly malicious, wanting to consume everything on the surface. What are these things meant to represent?
But the ship has a secret.
At this point he could tell her the ship is made of marshmallows and it would make about as much sense.
For unlike the stone, her gaze is not downward but up.
Is he referring to the actual ship or the people on board? If it is the crew, it makes sense because the position of the stars is what they would use to navigate when sailing. To be more metaphorical, is the brother trying to say there is a deep evil within Grendel that will consume everything on the surface if she ever chooses to look inward? Is he encouraging her to never be introspective and to remain as she is instead of looking at the horror inside her?
Fixed upon the light that guides her.
Is he trying to connect the metaphor to the North Star or something else?
Whispering of grander things than darkness ever knew.
There are things quite grand in the darkness too, though what form it would take is a different question. It is a matter of perspective. Also, what exactly are the parameters for grand? Is it scale, style, purpose, or something else entirely?
But sometimes the lights shine just as brightly reflected in the water as they do in the sky.
The point he makes is about the depth of light and dark, not its deceptive nature. Her quandary is related to making the right choice while he is talking about the severity of the choice. Maybe.
It's hard to say which way is up and which way is down.
Drop something. Up is the opposite direction. Grendel is as smart as the First Empire in the rise of Palpatine.
How am I to know which lights to follow?
If on the surface both choices are similar, it does put one in a tight spot. However, it depends on the context of the choice, and as we are exploring this in such a general manner, the resulting answer would be just as general. It is the equivalent of talking about the trolley problem while what is on the tracks are hidden. We do not hear his answer because it will be revealed later on, and so we shall wait. Anyway, the reason why there is a ship and stone is simple enough. She made a ship and the stone thrown by the children sank it. Yet the utilizations of them, as shown, are beyond ridiculous. Perhaps the stone is meant to be the actions one takes, but this cannot be because the ship too is referred to in a manner of an action. If the two items are individuals, the stone can only sink, while the ship can sink and move onward. The darkness the stone falls to initially refers to the extremity of the action taken, yet as it is only possible to go down, the severity of the action will always be in a negative. When she speaks, it becomes a matter of what choice to make, with light and dark being the poles of morality. The conversation has turned from the consequences of the action to the thought process of performing the action in the first place, without addressing either.
But that seems so simple.
The most important truths often are.
Sometimes the answer can be simple, and conflict can arise as a result of overcomplicating things, so I can appreciate the sentiment, though they do not work in the context of the conversation.
But you must learn to discern them for yourself. I won't always be here to speak them to you.
This is called foreshadowing.
You won't?
Her confusion hints there has not been a death among the elves till this point, which begs the question of when these events are taking place.
Come along. Mother and father are waiting.
He dodges the question, as if he knows something of what is to come and is in turn trying to protect her, which would be consistent. Before she could ask any more questions, he stands and walks, while Grendel is looking on from. Why is he leaving without her when he just admitted their parents are waiting for the two of them? Why is she, instead, looking on as if this is the last time she is going to see him? It is as if she is behaving with the knowledge of the writers implanted into her rather than the information available to her as a result of the events within the world she is a part of.
We had no word for death.
Even if the idea of elves dying is foreign to them, there must surely have been plants that have perished in the time they have been alive. prompting the creation of a word to describe the process. If nothing dies, what do they eat? And what about the brother? He speaks in a manner that suggests he would die. So do they know about death or not?
For we thought our joys would be unending.
Difficult to believe when all that has been shown are children bullying and fighting each other. If the point made is that joy would be unending, show such a moment so the viewer has an idea of what is at stake for the elves. He continues walking up the hill, revealing the kingdom of Elfland. The music is doing a lot of heavy lifting as it is trying to showcase the grandeur of the kingdom. Yet the sense of scale is unclear due to the fact it is devoid of life. For example, when the gang first sees Adoras, they are greeted not only to the structures of the village but also the people milling about. For a larger city such as Minas Tirith, it is introduced with a wide shot that establishes the structures. But as Gandalf and Pippin are riding through the streets, the scope of the city is made clear as a result of the amount of people present, something largely absent in Rings of Power.
We thought our light would never dim.
When the statement is made, we are shown the 2 trees of Valinor, the source of light in Elfland, though they never named them in the actual show, most likely due to rights issues.
So when the great foe Morgoth destroyed the very light of our home,
the trees are shown being infected by something, withering and dying as the silhouette of Morgoth forms amongst the clouds. Now that the only source of light has been destroyed, what happens to the land?
we resisted.
Elfland has transformed into the Pride Lands under Scar's rule. While not lit by a sun, the trees behaved in a similar manner. The mechanics of how all this works are bringing up more and more questions that most likely have no answer.
And a legion of elves went to war.
Following the elves drawing swords, most likely making a vow to exact revenge upon Morgoth, a large number departs their homeland. At least what could be construed as a large number, as there is no context for how many individuals each ship could carry. It could be 10 or 100 per ship, and the resulting number when combined has a lot of interpretation. Simply having a large number of any one thing does not mean it is a lot. For example, is 2 a large number? 2 tic-tacs? No. 2 bullet wounds? Yes. There is also a light concentrated at the edge of the ocean, as if they are heading to a portal. Do the elves live in a different dimension? Will there never be a light present in Elfland again if there is no connection to Earthland outside of a portal? Does this mean Elfland has no chance of being saved? If so, is what is on screen a mass exodus on the part of the elves to Middle-earth so they can simply survive?
We left Valinor, our home, and journeyed to a distant realm.
If there is a voiceover, it should add additional context to help expand on what is shown. In Fellowship, when Isildur is marching with his armies, he is attacked by orcs and killed. This is after he tries to use the ring to hide, only for it to slip off and reveal him as a target. Lady Galadriel's voiceover adds context that the ring has a will of its own, and slipping off of his finger is a form of betrayal as it wished to be found by the orcs and taken back to Mordor. Here the voiceover only repeats what is on screen.
One filled with untold perils and strange creatures beyond count.
This is something appropriate as it is describing something of the land they are going to. In essence,
A place known as Middle-earth.
a pointless line as the visual of the map alone does enough to introduce the new location. In fact, were all of the voiceover cut, nothing would change as the viewer would still be privy to the same amount of information. During a battle, late at night, with eagles, fell beasts, elves, and orcs all fighting, the show follows the brother, the only one without a helmet, so the audience is anchored within the fighting, allowing a close look at the brutality of such a scene. Translated, it means, by the light of the Valar, they will die. As far as the actual phrase is concerned, it is a decent battle cry that would rally the troops to fight with all they have. What does not work is the performance, because the look on his face radiates abject terror. Imagine Achilles inspiring the Myrmidons in Troy with a rousing speech, yet his behavior in that moment is more akin to Shaggy out of Scooby-Doo.
They said it would be over quickly.
Famous last words. That said, it is unclear if this is as a result of overconfidence from the elves, or if it was due to them not knowing the full scope of the enemy's numbers. A combination of the two, or any other reason for that matter.
But the war left Middle-earth in ruin.
Shown better by the striking visuals than the pointless voiceover.
And would last centuries.
How would the respective armies have the men, resources, and morale for that long without exhausting one or all of them in that time? Anyway, following a great battle, either the same one shown earlier or another, it depicts well the repercussions and losses that occur as a result, with wounded soldiers tending to one another. Grendel is on the field collecting helmets and piling them atop one another. How did the pile get so high? Why were they piled up at all? Is it a ritual? Is it to honor the dead? If so, it seems a great waste when considering there are still soldiers out there. Why not take them back to base? As she is the only one doing this, does that mean she made the pile herself?
In the end, Morgoth would be defeated.
Would have been nice to see, like Sauron in Fellowship. Being told something great happened is far better than showing it.
But not before much sorrow.
This has already been established by the visuals and multiple lines prior. There are only so many different ways one can say the same thing.
For his orcs had spread to every corner of Middle-earth.
Branching off into smaller factions and moving to different parts of the continent to wreak havoc. Which creates a new challenge for the elves as the war has changed from one taking place on the battlefield to guerrilla warfare.
Multiplying ever greater under the command of his most devoted servant.
So, were they spread out? Or did they immediately rally under his second-in-command? Were they ordered to spread out throughout Middle-earth to increase their numbers in multiple points of the continent so that it would make searching for them that much harder for the elves? The visual shows all the orcs gathered at a core location, but the lines spoken are presenting the viewer with a different impression of what occurred.
A cruel and cunning sorcerer. They called him Sauron.
The build-up of anticipation leading to the introduction of a character is incredibly common in modern entertainment, mainstream in particular, where a disproportionate amount of time is spent in savoring the reveal of who a certain character is.
America Chavez.
Constructed in a manner to get an audience reaction as opposed to characters simply being introduced. This staggers the flow and pacing of the piece of media greatly. A show that handled the character introduction well is Arcane with Victor, where it was matter of fact and serves its purpose in the context of the show. To anyone unfamiliar with the character in League of Legends, that is all it was, an introduction. But to anyone familiar with the game, this is a big reveal. It allows the viewer to experience their own individual reaction without breaking the consistency of the fictional world.
My brother vowed to seek him out and destroy him.
Following this line, the show hard cuts to the brother dead with Grendel looking over him. The combination of the line spoken and the accompanying visual was plenty to understand what happened.
But Sauron found him first.
However, the voiceover goes on to state the obvious.
And marked his flesh with a symbol.
I see Sauron has a lot in common with Zack Snyder's Batman. Anyway, what is the purpose in branding his victims? Is it so that the elves know who is responsible? Is it a form of self-satisfaction?
One whose meaning even our wisest could not discern.
Rather, Sauron seems like the Zodiac Killer, leaving clues for the elves to decipher, perhaps in the hopes of leading them into a trap of some sort to end their conflict once and for all.
And there, in the darkness, his vow became mine.
Functionally, Grendel carrying on her brother's vow by taking his dagger as a symbol is fine, as it is a physical representation of the vow and a way for her to remember him.
And so we hunted.
As that was the vow she chose to take on and complete in place of her brother, that would be what is expected of her.
To the ends of the earth we hunted Sauron.
Reiterating she hunted only this time. It is shown the elves did indeed travel far to make this a reality.
But the trail grew thin.
Something important to highlight is that when we see the elves running, we see 20. In the next shot, we see 10. She has lost half her company as a result of sticking true to this vow. Was she reprimanded? Are the elves under her command dissatisfied by her leadership? Are they as determined as she is in this endeavor? Is morale still high despite having lost so many of their brothers in arms along the way? How is she taking the death of her men? Is she having second thoughts about this vow when considering the cost already exacted upon her company?
Year gave way to year.
The continent is large, and so it is logical that it would take time to hunt down a single individual.
Century gave way to century.
The continent is large, but not absurdly so, and adding to that her brother being found, let them know of Sauron's last whereabouts. Combined with the fervour with which Grendel is hunting him and the men at her disposal, and the time that has so far been taken in her search across the continent, if she found nothing, there is either nothing there, or she is incompetent.
And for many elves, the pain of those days passed out of thought and mind.
From the manner in which she is speaking, is she implying the war is considered over? We had just established Sauron was gathering his orc armies a minute ago, and after the death of her brother and a few centuries hence the war had turned into a distant memory? What happened in between to facilitate this shift in perspective? You do not just forget about a war you're in the middle of fighting, or is it a matter of the elves declaring it over as there is no longer an army, no enemy to fight, due to the centuries of Sauron not being seen or heard from, and Grendel is simply refusing to accept it?
More and more of our kind began to believe that Sauron was but a memory.
Which is absolutely understandable because of the centuries she has been looking for him. In that time, it may have been possible to cover every inch of Middle-earth at least twice, and if there's still nothing to be found, chances are he is no more. That is unless she was terrible at her job, which has not been disproven yet.
And the threat, at last, was ended.
That would be the implication, as there is a lack of evidence to prove the contrary.
I wish I could be one of them.
Ignorance is bliss, I hear. But what is her motivation now? Beyond the fact the writers know he is still alive and so she must continue to chase after him. In the Northlands, Grendel and the rest of her company climb a mountain right next to a waterfall. In full armor. Metal gets cold. Not only that, on ice, it is quite slippery. Nothing about what they are doing is safe in the slightest. Light of foot or not. The fact they got as high up as they did is nothing short of a writing contrivance. Grendel, meanwhile, is using her brother's dagger on the ice to help her gain a foothold in order to climb. And I can only imagine the stress that blade is under whenever she is stabbing it into the ice. This is all the more perplexing when finding out that the elves have pickaxes to climb with. Why is she purposefully ruining her brother's blade like this? The soldiers steadily make their way up, reaching platforms one at a time so they are able to regain their strength and push on to the next stage. However, Grendel, their commander, has continued to climb without checking on them, completely focused on what she must do over the protection of the group. How she managed to get to the rank of commander when this is the way she behaves on the field is unfathomable, and it is a wonder, if this is indeed how she treated all of her past soldiers, she still has elves who follow her orders after so long, as it would do nothing more than sowing contempt among the men.
You rank, arrogant amateur.
At the summit, Grendel stabs her sword into the ground instead of sheathing it. Why did she take it out to begin with? It's as if she is determined to wear out her blades, even if they are made of special metals from Elfland and are the result of elven smithing. It is no excuse for treating one's means of combat and survival in hostile territory poorly and with no respect. Pulling out the dagger.
Stop.
If we follow the visuals, she climbed the ice with the aid of the dagger. At the summit, she sheathes it, pulls out her sword, stabs it into the icy floor, and redraws her dagger so that she could use it to point at the map.
What the fuck are you doing?
Why is she using a sharp point against a piece of paper while at the top of a mountain? Anyway, on the map, she points to a structure, perhaps their destination. With how long they were searching, is this one in a long line of locations they have yet to go to, or their final location? Meanwhile, one of the soldiers, Thondir, approaches.
Commander Galadriel.
Considering the manner in which they were looking over to her moments ago, regarding her demeanor towards them, a confrontation was bound to happen, one she reacts to with annoyance. In Season 2, Episode 3 of Black Lagoon, Swan Song of Dawn, Balalaika sits on a fountain, seemingly out in the open as she waits for Hansel and Gretel, who had, over the course of the previous 3 episodes, hunted not only her, but her men. When Hansel finds her, He explains the extremity to which they tortured one of her men, letting her know she is next. She in turn demands that before he is killed, to apologize for his actions. Growing up in the USSR, those around her had high expectations of her, with the path of an Olympic ballerina laid in front of her to restore the status of her family name, which had, in the past, been tarnished by her father. As she grew older, those expectations shifted till she was enlisted in the military during the Russian-Afghan War, rising through the ranks as a result of her ability and performance in battle, earning the respect of the men under her command, sharing in the bloodshed and the resulting scars left behind. Following the fall of the Soviet Union, they were discarded. The lack of orders and direction formally dictated to them, causing them to spiral in their own way, Balalaika herself sinking into a depression of purposelessness. Yet her men still respected her for all she had done for them, and them in turn for her, a bond forged through battle. Yet it was the death of one of their comrades that birthed purpose within her and her men, vowing they would not be bottom feeders again, relocating to Roanapur, the criminal center of the world, and establishing the Hotel Moscow banner. Under her cruel leadership, and her men's ruthless execution of her plans, their status rose to one of the great powers within. Feared by many, and respected by others, ambition prompts them to climb higher, leaving nothing but ashes and flame, while suffering minimal casualties, done through intense research to exploit the enemy weakness, whether it be through their personality, actions or flaws in tactics, accumulating every piece of information before formulating a plan, putting in the hours herself to maintain dominance among the gangs, her men too reciprocating her effort when following her plans. With Hansel in front of her, having been guided to her as a result of the plan concocted by her and carried out by her men when given the command. The boy is shot twice and she watches as he dies in retribution for her men. With the fear and respect Hotel Moscow had earned since Balalaika's arrival in Roanapur, she was able to reach out and also have Gretel killed during her attempted escape, bringing her vendetta to an end. Balalaika is meticulous in her operation, intelligent and highly strategic. Her high standards for herself and willingness to do the grunt work alongside her men inspires the same level of effort and competence in those under her command, each of whom are capable of leading a squad in their own right, but choose to follow her due to the respect she has earned, not only for her performance on the field, but also to the degree she would go to protect her men. Her ambition and ruthlessness directed at those who would stand in her way breeds not only fear but respect, and Hotel Moscow under her command is capable of keeping the criminal island relatively calm through sheer force, alongside the work of the Chinese Triad and other major global criminal organizations, all coming from a desire to make sure her men have purpose and are not simply discarded. A burden she carries, for if one of her men were to be killed, she sees it as her failing, taking extreme ownership with her leadership.
Good.
This company has followed you to the very edge of the world.
This confirms the men here are the same she had been traveling with for centuries. The fact they kept following despite losing half their company over the years shows they had great respect for her. Respect, from the little we have seen, she does not deserve. Making things worse is that, looking at her past, this is not behavior developed after centuries of war. Rather, she always had this demeanor, meaning she has barely changed in the past several hundred years.
But none who ever dared search for this last stronghold has ever found anything.
It is curious that Grendel and her company were not the only ones to come here, which begs the question, how many search parties have come before and how thorough were they in their search, considering the assumed location was mapped as already established. This being the final stronghold is of great importance as it would confirm the status of the enemy, which, if we are to take all the information at face value, brings us to one of many perspectives. It does not exist, confirming the rest of the elves were justified in thinking the enemy is gone, or they were lax in their search over the centuries, while Grendel is the only one still looking.
It's been years since the last orc was sighted.
Established minutes ago through Grendel's voiceover. Though, did the men in her company die due to orc encounters? A faction not seen in years, establishing how long they have been in the field. Or were they victims of environmental attrition? If the latter, Grendel would be directly responsible for the deaths of her men. Elves are quite resilient, yet to have 10 of them die to the elements during her command would condemn her ability as a leader.
Is it not possible the other commanders are right, and our enemy is no more?
A good point. Combining his observation of her behavior and the men lost over the course of their search would prompt one to question their cause. In fact, he is being quite civil if taking into account the least flattering interpretation of events on offer based on the evidence.
Night is closing in. How long can living flesh endure where even sunlight fears to tread?
At least someone cares about the men's lives. In a frozen wasteland, it is a valid concern to have, especially with Grendel as the leader. What is disconcerting is that Grendel is looking at him with pure annoyance for them being here in the first place, as if they are holding her back. Confirming she has not changed over the centuries.
Perhaps we would be wise to camp here.
Having climbed as high as they have, a wise suggestion, giving the elves an opportunity to recharge so they could endure the freezing temperatures of this region further.
And tomorrow begin the journey home.
This statement is consistent with his concern for his brothers. However, I must question his timing. Why bring this up here, and not before they started climbing? Now, not only did they climb, but if she agrees, they have to descend it the very next day. If this conversation was held at the base of the mountain, there is a chance the climb would have been avoided.
We are losing the light.
Filthy harlot!
Having ignored the concerns of her men communicated to her by Thondir, without a second thought, they depart immediately without giving the men an opportunity to recover after having just climbed the equivalent of a mountain. The next shot presented is of the company walking in a blizzard. What is unclear is if the area is dark as a result of the clouds hanging above causing the storm, or because they had been traveling for the entire day and that it is now nighttime. If the former, considering the area they're in, the storm clouds will be visible from a long way off, and the fact she marched on regardless instead of setting up camp so that the elves are protected from the elements would highlight her obsession in finding the enemy. Depending on the type of character a yarn is revolving around, this can be a good thing to start a journey on. For example, the detective who chases that one criminal with every waking moment of his life, even when it is a detriment to himself, who learns, in time, to re-evaluate his priorities and get his life back in balance. With the information given so far in the episode, it has been established that orcs have not been seen in years. The war between the orcs and the elves has been considered over for centuries due to Sauron having not been found in that time. While there have been other search parties in the past that had combed the area and not found anything. While it would show her obsessive tendencies when it comes to fulfilling her brother's vow, it does not explain the urgency with which she is going on the hunt, as if the enemy is in front of her and would get away if she dared to stay in one place and rest. This highlights a warped sense of priority and recklessness that would pointlessly put not only her life, but the lives of her men at risk. Alternatively, if they had been traversing the land till nightfall, and subsequently kept moving forward despite a storm coming up putting them in this precarious situation, that would make her outright negligent. Such actions would place her men at risk unnecessarily, but would explain how the number of men under her command has halved during their expedition, cementing the fact her actions are directly responsible for the death of her men, adding to which her annoyance directed towards her men when her choices are challenged after failing to accomplish their mission repeatedly for centuries. This is a level of callousness that would ordinarily have a commanding officer, at the least, demoted, and at worst, court-martialed. Neither interpretation is flattering, as they are degrees of terrible in their own right, based on her behavior, actions, and the manner in which she treats her men when on the field. A character she has most in common with is Vicious from Cowboy Bebop.
Not that one.
A character who abandons his comrades without a second thought, betrays those who trust him, and cares only for his own goals at the expense of the men and women around him. In short, a sadistic villain. It is not impossible to center a story around a villain. However, the skill required to overcome the difficulty in its execution is high. Moving on, the area is barely visible as a result of the snow. though there is a moment of illumination present as a result of the lightning making itself known on occasion. The group of elves are noticeable due to the torches they have lit to help guide their way. What is done well is the fact that they are all holding onto the shoulder of the soldier in front, making sure the line is not broken and ensuring if one is to falter, the man ahead would be aware instead of risking anyone being left behind. Based on the two individuals in this company that we have seen interacting with each other so far, it is absolutely believable that this must have been at Thondir's request rather than Grendel. This is because she is someone that leaves her men behind during a campaign, while Thondir was the one that brought up the rear, making sure everyone climbed the mountain. In this instance, he is walking directly behind Grendel. This could be twofold. Either he is the second in command of the company, or he is the one the men trust most to lead them in Grendel's stead after having their concerns rejected outright. As they march on, one of the men collapses, and the soldier in front immediately turns to the fallen. Grabbing the torch and picking it up is a decent move as light is a premium in this environment, and they cannot afford to lose not only a source of light, but a precious source of heat.
Commander, wait!
Hoping to get their leader's attention so they are able to take care of the weakened man.
No! We keep moving!
In episode 11 of 86, here we go. Major Vladilena Melise, during her house arrest, travels to the forwardmost base of the San Magnolia Republic in their defense against the remnants of the Giadian Empire. Legion, going through the empty base as she acquaints herself with the location, seeing where her soldiers in Spearhead Squadron would be stationed for herself. Fresh in the military, following in her father's footsteps, Vladilena is in charge of a squad fighting in the front lines. Due to the racial tensions between the soldiers of Zone 86, who were subjugated by the Republic and forced to fight on their behalf, while the Alba lived in the comfort of the walled-off city, far from the war being fought. Despite her efforts in trying to help, the soldiers do not care for her, calling her a white pig as they do to all Alba. With the previous handler of Spearhead Squadron leaving his post after being exposed to the Legion's black sheep, she is offered the opportunity to take over. They are all considered elite soldiers who have survived at least 4 years in the front lines. Add to this group her potential, being the youngest major in the history of the Republic military, and her effort when conducting herself, she is a logical choice. Despite the fact the group was only assembled a month prior, they already had 5 handlers leave their post, yet she accepts regardless. She takes to communicating regularly with the group, their leader Shin in particular, wanting to maintain close relations so that she is able to perform her duties to the utmost, even if said interactions were unwelcome by many in the squadron, who see her as nothing more than a privileged pig safe within the walls of the Republic, playing the part of a saint. Upon the death of Kaye, one of the Spearhead Squadron, Vladilena is berated by Theo, highlighting the hypocrisy of her words, providing lip service to an ideology of equality, when her actions prove otherwise, where she does not even ask for their names, unconsciously keeping a barrier between them that stops her from getting too involved. A perspective held by her own uncle, reflecting that while her sense of justice is admirable, she is no different from her father, who stood behind and did nothing as the 86 were subjugated and forced to fight for the Republic, while the Albas looked the other way. The guilt eats away at her till she reaches out, asking for forgiveness from the squadron and introduces each other properly, a turning point in the way they treat each other as from this point on, she goes above and beyond to make sure they are as well prepared as they could be for battle and are able to enjoy a brief reprieve in between. Their bonds and loyalty to each other grow fast as a result where they are completely open with her, and she in turn with them, their only request of her being to remember them if they were to die. When a new enemy base is set up, Spearhead Squadron is ordered to attack it. Despite Vladilena protesting it is a trap, a mission the squad accepts readily as they knew from the moment they were assigned to this group, this is where they would all be executed as the Republic cannot risk an uprising or the truth of their treatment reaching the public. On the march towards their final mission, Spearhead Squadron face an overwhelming force whose goal is to kill Shin in particular, a legion of machines led by the consciousness of his dead brother, extracted and manipulated so they could evolve further, and Shin readily takes on the challenge. wanting to finally put his brother to rest. The remaining members of the 86 fight with all they have, till for the first time in their war, reinforcements come in the form of an aerial bombardment. Vladilena, unable to simply stand by and watch her men get killed by order of the Republic, ignores her orders, breaks protocol, and manipulates whoever she could to make sure they are able to survive. An action she would be punished for. With the enemy defeated, what's left of Spearhead Squadron continues on despite her pleas, reminding her that while they may be in hostile territory, they would be living free for the first time in years, listening to every word they have to say until they go out of communication range, breaking down in public as her soldiers were sent to their death by the very people who were meant to protect the citizens, regardless of everything she managed to do for them. Arriving at their forward base, she meets those who are stationed there, and explores the buildings where her soldiers lived before they were sent out on their final mission, during which time she finds their last words to her, along with their drawing of her. As they fought to their last, she declares to protect all those she could, regardless of the rules she breaks in the process, placing the lives of the men under her command over her own safety. Vladilena grows from a naive idealist who is unaware of how she too is a part of the system she is discrediting, to someone who is willing to carry out the action she is preaching about, going the extra mile to do what she can to ensure the further survival of the soldiers under her command, starting with little things such as conducting research on enemy tactics, till by the end of the journey, she would disobey her commanding officers for their sake. Her experiences leading up to this point forms the foundations of her rebelling against the discriminatory systems that had been set up by those who came before, wanting to change things from the inside, challenging her superiors so that she can change the mentality of not only the military, but the rest of the Alba living in San Magnolia, desiring to save as many lives as she could rather than sacrificing them in a war of attrition with the Legion, evolving into a leader that, through her own effort and her care towards her men, earns the respect of the soldiers who serve under her, whether they be 86 or Alba. Fantastic.
Commander, wait! No! We keep moving!
Filthy harlot!
It is entirely feasible to have a character go on an arc, developing into a great leader over the course of the story. The issue with Grendel is that she is already hundreds, if not thousands of years old, and has been a military officer for centuries on top of it. When the initial plea was ignored by their commander,
Stop!
considering the standard of writing so far, this may be as a result of an accident. The fact the soldier called out using her name as opposed to any recognition of formal rank goes to show the extremity to which the trust between her and her men has eroded, conveying that the concerns Thondir brought up in the previous scene are the perspectives of the group and he was their representative. There are two things to praise here. One is that the degree to which respect has diminished towards Grendel is well presented by the manner in which she is being addressed, and Grendel is incredibly consistent in the manner she is behaving, showing there has been no development or progression as a character from the time of her childhood to this point in time, possibly over 1,000 years later. Though it is probable none of this was intended, she eventually turns to see the reason for the call, and upon seeing the collapsed soldier she walks over to the two. Her expression is difficult to decipher as she pulls clothing off of her own body to cover the man on the floor, a redeemable act, which is good to see in a leader, though considering the fact one of them collapsed, and the men being so spread out, it may be better to gather closer to consolidate as much heat as possible with the aid of the torches, and protect the weakened soldier from the wind to the best of their ability.
There's nothing out here! We should have been there by now!
The second half of this statement is quite interesting. If no one had found this last stronghold, how would he know if they should have been there by now, or the existence of it altogether? While looking about, they notice two outposts.
We are there.
The lightning illuminating the surroundings for brief moments, regularly, alongside the pace at which they are traveling, combined with Grendel looking ahead. How were these structures missed? Also, is the blizzard a perpetual state of weather here? If so, that could aid the fact the structures are well hidden. However, if there are calm spells, that would make this outpost not being discovered impossible, as it would stand out in the barren landscape, turning towards the direction they were walking in, A grand structure is in front of them due to their proximity to the building. How was it left unseen by the characters who were all facing that direction? It is as if unless the camera focuses on the subject, it does not exist, until it is eventually revealed, highlighting a disconnect between the world the characters exist in and the world presented to us on screen. Once inside the building, they explore.
This is where the orcs gathered after Morgoth's defeat.
Is the dialogue implying this is the location shown minutes ago? Is the blizzard permanent now, preventing it from being revealed? Because in the scene presented, there is light and the mountains beyond are visible. How were the orcs able to find this place when they were spread throughout the continent? If they knew the orcs were gathering in a location, why did they not follow them here and strike while the armies were still mobilized?
Far more must have escaped than we ever imagined.
How was she able to discern that more orcs arrived here? Is it from the sheer size of the outpost alone? Because there are no bodies around to take stock of the number of orcs that could have been here.
My hand is past feeling.
Tends to happen when spending a lot of time in the cold.
No, this place is so evil our torches give off no warmth.
If that is the case, how is the torch alight? If heat is suppressed in this place, is their own body heat being suppressed? If that is the case, how are they able to survive instead of freezing to death the moment they stepped inside? Is it a matter of the heat being suppressed within the body and containing it within? Would that not mean their bodies would grow warmer as a result of the heat having nowhere to go? It can be both and neither simultaneously. This is an example of Schrodinger's writing.
This way.
How can you be certain?
It's colder than the rest.
How is she able to feel which way is colder? If no heat radiates from this place, wouldn't everything feel cold? At least with Gandalf in Moria, he was able to follow his sense of smell, which is more distinguishable to separate. It is as if this is a reference to that moment without much of the thought behind why so much time is taken to marinate over the weight of the choice to be made in the direction to go and the possible consequences. Furthermore, the viewer is simply told that the way they are heading in is the correct direction without presenting how many paths there are to begin with. As they are heading along the path, a creature moves, setting up danger towards the elves, and a fight to come. With fatigue, exposure, and the unfamiliar setting, fighting something that is used to this environment in its natural habitat is going to be quite the challenge for the group. In many ways, this opening adventure is much akin to the journey through Moria in Fellowship. Only, this is a cheap imitation. Along the path, she stops to observe the wall, and punches it.
A door was filled in here. Bring it down.
How did she find out about this path? The sound design indicated there is wind in the area. Though considering there is a blizzard outside, it makes sense this sound is emitted. Furthermore, it cannot be wind inside the building because the fires on the torches are unaffected. There is nothing for the viewer to glean on how she was able to figure this out, and the only conclusion left is that she knew because the writers knew. Grendel and Thondir walk in together, while he holds his sword to the side by the blade. If it is drawn, and he is on standby in case of an attack, he is only risking hurting himself. If it is not drawn, why did he unholster his sheath and hold it at his side? Why in the next shot is he shown to be sheathing his sword? Was the sword drawn or not? Was the sheath at his hand or not? Continuity, it seems, is a foreign concept in this world. Entering a forge, they search the area, revealing some orc remains.
What devilry is this?
Upon Grendel turning to see what was found, the corpse of an orc is revealed, embedded in the wall, out in the open. Why did Thondir open the door at all? It could simply be a way of presenting the visual of something being revealed. When in the context of the world they are in, there is nothing to reveal because it is already out in the open. The line is illuminating as it hints the image of an orc melded with the wall is something not seen in the past. Or, at the least, the elves had not come across such a thing before, implying Sauron had been experimenting on orcs. We may learn in due time.
These orcs were meddling with the powers of the unseen world.
What is the unseen world? Is it the afterlife, or a parallel world existing alongside their own, where only individuals with certain abilities are able to discern? If Grendel knows of this, why would Thondir not know about such things? Is this knowledge restricted by rank? How did they find out about it in the first place? Alternatively, Is this a metaphor for things yet to be discovered?
Some dark sorcery of old.
It is unlikely elves would practice dark sorcery, unless it is a dark elf. Anyway, there is some knowledge of it that makes it familiar to Grendel, meaning it is not unknown to the elves. So why is Thondir unaware of this? Or is this magic so old, only those of a certain age know it? Which could mean Thondir is much younger than Grendel, perhaps even born and raised in Earthland.
But what was their purpose?
A relevant question, setting up a mystery that needs solving. One could even say the writers set up a mystery box.
Surely it is lost to the ages now. Whatever happened here was long ago.
A logical conclusion based on the information available. However, the visuals highlight she is paying attention to something else entirely, setting up she would go on to discard his point of view entirely without consideration. Which is consistent. Following a snowflake, it lands on the anvil and melts with a sizzle.
Curious.
As this is a place that suppresses all heat, this is an object that contradicts the rules of this place. It could be the conduit into which all the heat is funneled into, making it so the anvil is the only thing with heat. Yet, as this is a frozen area, where does it usually find heat? Is it a matter of it getting warmer as a result of the torches and the presence of the elves?
Water.
Having observed this phenomenon, she pours a decent amount of water on the anvil, and it boils immediately, turning to steam. Interestingly, she uses Thondir's water instead of her own, and uses the last of it, with this being a frozen wasteland, and the scarcity of drinkable water. This action would put his life at risk, which is also consistent.
Even stone cannot hide the mark of one whose very hand is flame unquenched.
What the fuck are you talking about, man?
The stone is permanently embedded with the mark left behind by Sauron? Is it a spell? Why is only the anvil hot? Does it radiate heat? Or is it specific to touch? What is the anvil like when it is not winter? Is the presence of this anvil the reason why the environment is the way it is? What are the mechanics of this place? Also, why is an emblem revealed when water is poured on it? And why is it in the form of frost? Would that not mean there would be snow surrounding the area on top of the anvil, instead of the entire thing being clean? Furthermore, the image of the emblem is then surrounded by flames, though only in Grendel's eyes because Thondir looks at it and her in turn as if wondering what is happening. Is it a hallucination, a vision, or something else entirely?
He was here. Sauron was here.
How does she know? Is marking all the places he has been to a pattern because he likes to mark his territory? Is it a part of his essence left behind when performing a spell? Perhaps an emblem used by the faction of orcs?
Tell the others to rest while they can. At sunrise we move on.
Unlike earlier, she is giving her men some time to rest. This does establish it is indeed nighttime, meaning they climbed a mountain and weathered a blizzard in one day without rest. For them to continue when the evidence for a threat is as low as it is when considering the information so far, and depleting resources would drive them to mutiny.
Let's take the search farther north.
Further north?
A thin line separates determination from stupidity. Grendel, keeping up her search, highlights her determination, though after a couple of centuries, it has transitioned into an obsession. Her enthusiasm in chasing the enemy and risk she is putting her men in, on the other hand, that is stupidity.
This mark was left as a trail for orcs to follow.
How does she know this? It was established that the wisest elves could not figure out what it meant. Is there a correlation between landmarks and geography? If so, has it and the locations been cross-referenced against a map?
The last time I saw it was on my brother. We must follow it.
Why was it on the brother? Also, if the elves figured out this was the final outpost, why is she adamant on going further north? Is it pointing in that direction? Or is it another reason? The audience is simply told she thinks this, without any of the evidence needed to come to this conclusion.
The mark is centuries old. Whoever left it could be long dead.
There is every possibility whoever left the mark is immortal like the elves. It could also be a mortal. He has as much evidence to form his perspective as she does. In fact, he has more evidence because Sauron has not been seen in centuries and the orcs for years. The main difference is that she is of a high ranking and so can overrule him.
Or lying in wait, gathering strength, perfecting whatever dark art eluded him here.
It is possible this may be the case. Aside from the complete lack of evidence, other search parties have looked and found nothing, while she herself is suggesting the culprits are elsewhere. So why continue exploring this area?
We exceeded our orders months ago. Surely we must first return home to take counsel with the High King.
Adding fuel to the idea the men are becoming disgruntled by having to follow her. Let's not forget the 10 men already dead. How would the king take the news of these developments? Or is it symptomatic of her breaking the rules regularly? A character breaking rules and taking risks is not inherently bad, but doing so at the expense of and risk to the lives of her men.
I promise you there is not a soul amongst our company who yearns for home more than I.
Thing with platitudes is that they're empty, and often incredibly manipulative. Right now, she is most interested in her men continuing the search forward. It is particularly difficult to take her at her word due to her behavior till now. She has no friends, parents were never introduced, no interests and desires besides building paper ships, and her only connection to home, her brother, was killed centuries ago. What the show is telling and what it is showing are two different things.
I can still feel the light of the trees on my face. I can still see it.
Light is seen. Heat, on the other hand, is a different matter. Unless elves can photosynthesize, which would explain the issue with resources when they are being wasted in such environments.
And until we are certain every trace of our enemy is vanquished, I can never return.
What is Elfland like now? Is it still habitable? Is it lit by the same sun lighting up Earthland? Are there elves still there? Is there life at all? This is loosely, vaguely within the same solar system as the Lord of the Rings. Obviously, orcs will be present, but all the information present has been that they had been absent from the world for years, centuries even. For the characters' actions and motivations to be consistent, or at the very least logical, they must react to the world they live in accordingly. Meanwhile, an elf is exploring alone. Orcs may not have been seen in years, but this is still hostile territory. He should be in pairs. While it is clear Grendel is not a good leader, that does not mean the men are free of blame with their actions either. Except for Thondir. He's mostly okay. Also, why is he holding his bow when in an enclosed area instead of a sword, which is far more adept at defense and offense in a tight area? Anyway, running away, he reaches two other elves, who draw swords while the initial elf draws an arrow. The elves with the swords hold their blades against the wrist while holding the torch. Ordinarily, it would be held in front to use as protection from a possible attack and to be ready in turn to attack. Either they are inexperienced, weak from a lack of rest, or are inept at what they do. In 13 seconds, she takes down the snow troll alone, where her men together failed. This sets up power levels that separates her from her men and the troll. It also shows the lack of teamwork present in taking down a significant threat. What is made clear repeatedly is that Grendel is held back by those around her, fracturing the relationship between the men and herself, using them to get what she wants. In Final Fantasy VII Advent Children, Cloud reaches his companions as they fight Bahamut Sin, a creature summoned by Kardaj to destroy the Meteorfall monument. They try to contain it, however it is able to overwhelm them. After the events of Final Fantasy VII, the world is ravaged by geostigma, a terminal disease that infects and kills people. One that infected Cloud as he searched for a cure to help those he has taken in to care for. In that time, Cloud has retreated into himself, becoming more isolated due to a combination of the guilt felt from not being able to protect those around him and the hopelessness from the geostigma, which in turn affects his ability to fight, where he is either pushed back or beaten outright. Yet his friends reach out, trying to remind him that he is not alone, converging to fight together and support him, reminding him by their presence he is not alone. They try to slow Bahamut down but fail. while it powers up an attack that would likely kill everything in the area. Cloud tries to stop it, though unlike prior fights, he is no longer alone, and with the help of his friends is able to reach and attack Bahamut with one of his strongest attacks, accepting and moving on from his long festering guilt, recognizing he cannot hide from the world, and with his friends' help, overcoming, or at the least, enduring the challenges to come. The narrative, characters and visuals all lead to Cloud taking a significant step forward in his grief, setting up the foundations to overcoming it, while finding hope in the fight once more. With Grendel, the narrative, characters and visuals are enabling her rather than highlighting any deficiencies that need to be confronted.
We should never have come in here.
Understandable considering the environment, lack of resources, and the beasts prowling about.
We leave soon enough. The order is given. We march at first light.
While they chase ghosts, a perspective consistent with the rest of the soldiers the scene so far presented. She did not check to see if any were injured. It would not be surprising to learn the elves have diminished in number due to being cannibalized by the others so they can continue.
Then you shall do so alone.
About time. Anyway, she is annoyed to say the least, and the music suggests this is a great betrayal. But based on the information, this is the only outcome that could have resulted here. With that, we finally come to the title card, ending the prologue, and starting the yarn in earnest. The show shifts to a location further south from where Grendel was and north of Mordor. Two hunters are shown in an elevated area of a mountain range, carrying antlers on their backs.
Something's wrong here. Nothing to hunt. Wolves in every thicket.
This illuminates the natural state of the area, where game is ordinarily meant to be plentiful. This does bring up the question of why the hunters have antlers on their backs. Are they traveling further distances in order to hunt? If so, are they spending extended periods of time away from home? And shouldn't they be carrying more food to bring back to the tribe? Why are only two of them hunting? Does this tribe ordinarily hunt in pairs, or are they adapting to the lack of prey available to them during this time? Did the wolves arrive in this region en masse and drive the animals to different areas? From their manner of speech, it is as if this is a new development and outside the scope of what happens here. Is this the main reason why there are no animals to hunt? Or are the wolves coming here because they are seen as prey in their homeland? If there are as many wolves as the characters are implying there are, why are only two hunters going together as opposed to traveling in a pack, particularly when carrying heavy loads on their backs, making them vulnerable due to not being able to maneuver quickly?
Don't you think it's the least bit strange?
World's strange.
While one hunter exhibits concern for the lack of game in the area, the other dismisses it entirely. The older hunter may be unconcerned as a result of having seen similar conditions in the past and sees the patterns pertaining to things returning to normal soon. That said, if something similar has happened before, wouldn't the other hunter also be aware of such things, making the initial statement by him redundant as a result? And if he is not taking things as seriously, is the lack of resources a minor issue in the grand scheme of things in their village? Alternatively, it is simply a matter of one of the hunters being overly cautious, while the other is aloof, with nothing greater to the characters than that. This is a dynamic that would work well when developing a scene, however the context of the scene does not support this because the characters are of similar age to each other. Had this conversation been between an elderly hunter with a younger hunter on his first hunt, the curiosity regarding his question would make more sense due to his inexperience, and the older hunter would be able to reassure him as a result of his experience.
If a little pitch kettle me, I'll never get off me bar stool.
This highlights his experience in hunting and life in general. Furthermore, it places the attention on the challenges they have to face, such as the wolves and, on occasion, the lack of game present to hunt in certain seasons.
Oi, oi!
While this is a common trope in horror, it is often done in dark environments to build up tension in a scene or as a cheap jump scare. Here, it is simply a cheap jump scare. The fact it is done in daytime makes this all the more ridiculous because based on the speed at which the thing was moving and how fast the hunters turned to see what it was, there is no way they missed it because they have eyes. Allegedly. Combine this with the fact the hunters are short of game to hunt, with wolves out as commonly as they hint towards, they should be on higher alert as a result.
Keep walking. Why? Look like a badger. Maybe a fox.
Comparing the assuredness of the characters in this situation, the only other reason that could make sense of this manner of behavior is if this is the first time he has come on a hunt, which begs the question of why he is doing so now as opposed to starting when he was younger. Is the village they are a part of losing young hunters due to the added threat in the area? Or are they so strained with the task of looking for food that those whose profession in the village is something other than hunting are made to go out to hunt too? Which would explain the inexperience displayed here, and the lack of concern from the other.
More likely a half-foot. Half-foot?
Why is he confused by what a half-foot is? If they are both from the same village and hunt together, they should be privy to the stories within, particularly when it comes to the stories of their hunters. That said, what are they in the context of the village they are a part of? Are they a myth, something told to the younglings in fairy tales, or a creature the hunters have come across in their past expeditions they have told stories of?
Don't care to be seen none, but if you do, watch yourself. Dangerous creatures they are.
Has he encountered them in the past, or is he simply passing it down from the stories he had inherited from those who came before?
You're making it up.
This is an odd interaction because the old man is speaking as if the half-foots are incredibly common in the area. However, the partner is behaving as if he doubts their existence altogether. Is it a way of showing the older, more unhinged character who is used to such situations and comparing him to the rookie that is starting out? Again, not the best way to do this type of dynamic considering their ages.
Come on, rattle your dags. Let's just get to the lake before sundown.
Due to the fact there is no lake shown in the establishing shot, and needing to reach their destination by sundown, it is clear that they had travelled a good distance to find their prey, which goes on to further make clear that there is scarcely any meat to be hunted in this region. Why is the little one standing when the hunters are still so close to posing a threat? Why are so many of them so close to the hunters, and why are they revealing themselves while the hunters are still at close proximity to them? Why risk getting caught like this? Why not observe them from a distance? Once a signal is given, while the hunters are still close by, a camp of hobbits nearby reveals itself. A particularly tan hobbit is sniffing. What is he trying to sniff out?
Clear and clear.
Was he sniffing to figure out if the area is clear or not? They already know they are in the clear because one of the hobbits gave the signal, even though they clearly weren't, but this is something the show is not willing to acknowledge. So what was the point of him reinforcing this call when he stepped out after the signal was given out? And why say it twice? Was it meant to be one clear for each hunter? But then, how did he know there were two when he was nowhere near the area? Was he able to smell both of them individually? If so, how far does his nose detective mode extend to? Incredible how the baby waited exactly until the hunters were out of range in order to start crying. Imagine how differently things would have gone had it started crying while they were nearby, revealing the entire camp as a result. While the hobbits are re-establishing their base, one of them is looking for
Glory!
This sequence of revealing various aspects of the hobbit camp lasts for 46 seconds. This allows the storytellers to establish how good they are at camouflage, informing the viewer on how they are able to survive without many casualties, but this brings up the question of why they have such a menacing reputation among the mortals. Despite the time spent in establishing the area, the scope of the location is minuscule in comparison. Time is spent in repeating actions of the characters revealing the possessions and rations. In fact, the tanned hobbit could have been cut from the sequence as his presence and actions were unnecessary as a similar function was performed by the whistleblower. Had he been introduced by setting the book on the table, it would have functioned as the culmination of the montage, setting him up as the clan elder, or keeper of the knowledge. Speaking of the book, why let it drop onto the table? When considering the importance it holds and the information within gathered by the hobbits over the course of the years, and the state of it when the pages are incredibly frayed with age, such a book should be treated with care. How the character is treating this artifact and the value it holds for the survival of the camp is disconnected. When he dropped the book on the table, a significant amount of dust is shot out. Had the table been left out for so long it had accumulated dust? Was the book left untouched for a significant amount of time, or a combination of the two? None of this work, as the table would be used regularly and the book would be well looked after due to how important it is to the camp. By looking at the book, he is able to see that, with the hunters roaming the area, the next threat to come are wolves. Why was this shown in the first place? Being as old as he is and the wisdom at his disposal, wouldn't this be something he would be aware of? It is likely the reason why is because it gives the writers an excuse to present this information to the viewer without expressing it through dialogue. While the old saying is to show, don't tell, there are instances where telling would serve the scene better, as it would allow the viewer to see how a story or a piece of information affects the characters that are taking part in the interaction, serving to not only get exposition out, but also developing the characters and building their personalities further. The skill comes in knowing when to use which.
Travelers, at this time of year.
Based on his confusion over what just occurred, had the entire segment of him and the book been removed, nothing would change, and would likely maintain some level of narrative integrity. This interaction would have helped set up information on what they are going through and what the signs mean through dynamic exposition while developing characters at the same time.
It's an omen, I warrant you. Back one, as bad as they come.
Easy, Malva.
While the women are treating the appearance of the hunters quite seriously, Lenny is trying to diffuse these concerns. This could be as a result of his own concerns after examining the book, attempting to not make a scene so that panic does not spread through the camp.
The last time we had travellers this early, it was the Great Frost.
This attempts to allude to a history regarding these characters, however it is vague at best. Was it something that happened during their lifetime, or far before? Because the manner in which Lenny is treating the situation was akin to something that has not happened in such an age that he has to consult their history. References to racist history is good as it provides world building. However, there needs to be context added so the viewer is able to follow the sequence of events and understand why the characters care as deeply as they do about these signs.
And there's no misremembering how bleak a season that was.
More likely they just got lost. That's it. Has to be the reason.
There is a disconnect between the perceived threat articulated by the woman and how Lenny is reacting to them, because he is the one looking through the books and saw for himself what is to come. There is a difference between trying to defuse a situation and dismissing it outright. If anything, the roles should be reversed, where he is overly analyzing the signs so as to protect the group, but the members of the camp themselves dismiss him due to the unlikelihood of such rare occurrences coming to pass.
I've looked low and high and low again.
The frame carries on in an unbroken manner, following the characters uninterrupted till the primary characters shift to two others.
But the Waynes are still out there.
They'll be fine, Goldie. Nori's with them. You know Nori.
Yes, I do.
The conversation prior is focused on the well-being of the group itself, while this one relates to the younglings outside the camp. Is it typical to have children wander so far the parents cannot find them? Regardless of whether they are being hunted or not by predators, they are still vigilant enough to hide at a moment's notice. And so it seems the lax manner in which they treat their children is at odds with their careful nature. From a technical point of view, it is neat that the filmmakers attempted to link the two groups in a way where the energy of the shot is maintained, while shifting the focus from one conversation to the next so that the foundations of the next scene is set up. In Midnight Mass Episode 2, Psalms, the opening has dozens of dead cats washed onto the shore following a storm the previous night. The sheriff is overlooking the scene, and the mayor joins him to discuss the probable causes, ranging from oil spills to disease. As they walk to the next group, the mayor shifts the conversation to the sheriff himself and his integration to the community within the island, asking him to participate more in the various events and even attend Sunday Mass, not in an attempt to convert him, but to show an interest in the people he is there to protect and know them to a better degree. When they reach Riley and his father, the conversation returns to the cats on the beach and what to do with them, the consensus being to burn them all to prevent the risk of infection from spreading. Once this is decided, they shift to Riley and his well-being, wanting to know if he saw anything when he was on the beach during the storm. As more of their attention was directed to Riley and how he is holding up in general, being back after his time in prison, he grows uncomfortable and excuses himself to walk over to Aaron. His primary concern is her health and her pregnancy, wanting to protect her as best he could from the potential risks of being so close to the dead cats. As with the prior two groups, they shift to their own topic after addressing the cats on the beach, relating to each other what it is like to be back home. As the scene closes, they end the conversation by once again referring to the cats, this time in a humorous manner, strengthening their character relationship by using the world events as a jumping off point. Throughout the different character interactions in this 7.5 minute long scene, the main conversational through line are the cats that washed up onto the shore. It is the foundation bringing together the characters and having them interact with each other, building their relationships, highlighting their perspectives, and what they mean to each other and to the larger community of the island. This effectively builds the larger narrative, characters, their priorities, their values, and what they mean to each other. While the continuity of the take is good in the Rings of Power, the execution of it is undercut by the quality of the writing. Unlike in Midnight Mass where the conversations are linked and flow efficiently, the topic of conversation here pivots as if there is a cut in the scene that separates it from the initial conversation. The show cuts to the next scene to reveal Nori's location.
Can we turn back now? There's 110 things out here that could kill us.
From how she was described, it is likely that the characters speaking these lines are directed towards Nori.
111 if we count you worrying to death.
She is someone who has the tendency to break rules and do things outside the norm when compared to the rest of the camp. Ordinarily, this would be fine if it was simply Nori and her friend. However, when considering it was already established that the children are with them, irresponsible is the word that most accurately describes her.
You know the rules, we're not supposed to be out this far.
How far away from camp are they? It's far enough away that the Hobbit could not find them, but it wasn't told how long she was looking. Was it since before the hunters walked through, or was it a brief scan after they passed? For the purposes of the story, they are simultaneously far enough away to be in potential danger but close enough to the camp if things go wrong.
If we didn't do everything we weren't supposed to do, we'd hardly do anything at all.
This is an interesting sentiment to have. Trying new things can be a good experience and helps to build character, as long as no lines are crossed. Once again, had it just been the two of them, this would be a strong character building moment, introducing an outgoing, confident character for the narrative to continue developing or to break down and rebuild. She is here with all the younglings from the camp, which, if something goes wrong, would wipe out an entire generation in one go. She is putting lives at risk to satisfy her own desires. This can be used to set her on an arc of redemption where she learns the error of her ways and learns moderation. Though, based on the presentation of the scene and its whimsical tone, the show does not realize just how much of a reckless character she is. Following this brief exchange, she steps through and helps the children enter the area. Most disconcerting is that she is letting them all run off, instead of asking them to wait so they can all proceed as a group, which would give her the chance to keep a close eye on the younglings. A larger hobbit is stuck at the entrance and Nori helps by pulling on her till she comes unstuck and falls face first into a puddle of mud. I believe this is called humor, coming at the expense of a character who is hyper worried about the environment she is in. If she was as cautious as she is made out to be, she would be the most careful here. However, when a joke is made about her being clumsy, it undercuts her concerns for the purposes of a quick gag. This has the effect of diffusing the threat they are in from a narrative point of view. Had these roles been reversed and Nori was the one who fell while the others stepped through carefully, it would reinforce the characteristics already spoken of so far. Again, as long as they were alone. Getting back on their feet, they run after the children. Reaching the end of the path, they come to an area filled with a collection of bushes. For the next 20 seconds, we are shown the hobbits enjoying their time eating the berries. A moment interrupted by a youngling calling for Nori, claiming she found something. A footprint, one she recognizes. Her reaction implies the danger presented is greater than she is making it out to be, admitting it is
A dog. Just a dog. You know how dogs love berries.
Hiding the risk they are in so that the children are not panicking, which is good, because panic rarely, if ever, helps. Beyond Nori, a creature moves. showing the wolves are closer than the hobbits think, raising the stakes of the scene exponentially, not only for the younglings but also the camp.
Is she going to eat our berries?
What does she mean by our berries? Do these bushes belong to the hobbits? If so, why are they planted so far away from camp? Or is she implying that the creature would hunt them and eat the berries they collected at the camp?
Not if he doesn't see us, he isn't.
Is this her way of saying that they would be safe as long as the creature does not see them? Or something else entirely?
Okay, two's in hands, everyone, time to go.
Good. When there is danger afoot, leave and prioritize the children. But the fact they were here at all is terrible.
Where's the big rat?
Okay, first off, why are the hobbits such messy eaters? Eating berries is very low maintenance and you have to try to make a mess of yourself when eating them. Basic cleanliness aside, why is the most fearful hobbit so nonchalant about this sudden shift by Nori? If anything, she should be the most careful one here, going so far as to stay on guard and tentatively eat the berries while scanning the area. Again, the roles should be reversed to continue building on the pre-established characteristics, where she would call for everyone to leave while Nori would be wondering why she is in such a rush.
You heard your sister, time to go.
Once both characters are on the same page, they shepherd the children away. While the children are not all too happy about this, Nori tries to bribe them with treats.
First one back to camp gets the first pie at Harvest Fest. That's so great. Remember, if anybody asks, we were just out digging for snails.
Lying does serve her best, as what she is doing is less than safe and is likely to get a tongue lashing from the parents of the children if they were to find out she led them so far astray. And a wolf was potentially involved had they lingered. The wolf then comes onto frame, but does nothing more, only staying there to show the threat without actually doing anything to the helpless children. In God of War Ragnarok, following Tyr's rescue, Atreus sneaks out and eavesdrops on his father's conversation with Mimir. Sindri sneaks up on him, wondering what he is planning. Atreus is evasive with regards to who he means to meet in Midgard, and as a result, Sindri is able to figure out he means to meet Freya, being immediately against the idea for fear of his safety. Instead, suggests they go see Jormungand in the hopes of finding answers. Along the way, Atreus moves confidently, while Sindri is far more cautious, typical of their personalities. Atreus is the main source of dealing damage, while Sindri is mending the machines, allowing them to continue their adventure. When they meet Yomi, Sindri is visibly frightened by the prospect of being so close to him, while Atreus speaks to him with confidence, not only from being able to speak the same language, but also from their history. This leads to a clue that will be relevant later, and Sindri lets slip where Freya is, prompting Atreus to keep going while Sindri goes as far as he is comfortable going. It could be that this is a line he is unwilling to cross, or understands that this is a conversation he needs to have in private. This action shows they trust each other, while displaying Sindri has a good understanding of who Freya is, knowing deep down that she would not harm him, even if she is on a warpath with Kratos, trusting Atreus and his intuition when getting a read on people. Following his interaction with Freya, they make their way back home in the realm between realms. On the way back, the tension in Sindri dissipates to the point he opens up, revealing the truth of what happened with Brock, and finding their friendship built up further, try to enjoy each other's company on the journey back. Once they get their alibi set, they re-enter the home, leading on to the adventures to come. During the first half of this segment, Atreus was eager to go outside his father's rules to do something he knows he shouldn't in the hopes of talking to a friend. Sindri is a ball of nervousness, both from the idea of meeting Freya at her most vengeful and being potentially found out by Kratos. On the way back from this adventure, Sindri relaxes while Atreus is becoming nervous. Sindri getting comfortable with going back to a safe environment, while Atreus has to hide one more thing from his father, who is already losing patience with him. The characters' behavior remain consistent, their dynamic evolving to the point they are willing to open up to each other, the threat level and their fears are clear, all going towards building the characters, their relationship to each other, and the narrative simultaneously. Back to the Rings of Power, where the next scene starts with an elf writing.
Harold Elrond, at last.
Yes, it's almost as if I didn't wish to be found.
This type of opening to a character indicates this is someone who does not fit the mold of what is expected of their people. Arthur, for example, when introduced, is presented in a manner that is unconventional when compared to the maid bringing her clothes. This is compounded by her reaction upon seeing Arte, highlighting this is improper behavior for someone of her station. Yet her attention is solely on the bird she is sketching on her pad. Through this simple interaction, a lot can be gleaned regarding the status of the characters and their priorities. Additionally, regarding the presentation of the scene, it is oddly unnatural, as if the characters, trees, and mountains exist independently from each other.
What tidings?
The council regrets to inform you you won't be permitted to attend the next session. Elf Lords only.
To this he is left disappointed, as if he was eager to take part only to have that possibility close to him due to his status. While he wished to be left alone, this information is undoubtedly important and something he was looking forward to. So why is he going out of his way to stay hidden? Wouldn't it make sense if he goes into isolation after getting the news instead of before?
Was there anything else?
Yes, your friend has arrived.
She is here. Why didn't you say so?
This reaction is baffling because the elves were delivering the information by order of importance. His admission to the council meeting is of far greater importance and so is given to him first. Considering his reaction to the news, it would be rude for them to continue without being prompted further. And so, being respectful, they wait instead of intruding upon his thoughts in that moment. They acted exactly as they should have, while he, on the other hand, was wasting their time purposefully. Regardless, he grabs his things and leaves the area.
For the ceremony.
He was not finished with that document. Last we saw, he was still trying to figure out the right phrasing. And so, he is essentially passing on something that is incomplete. No wonder he was rejected from joining the council. He doesn't finish his tasks. The show reveals the current location, Lindon, capital of the High Elves. This sets up a new location, while establishing the existence of different elf factions in Earthland. Lindon is bathed in sunlight, with warm colors throughout, creating a welcoming kingdom, on the surface at least. The nature blending with the architecture displays the elves' attunement towards the elements, and integrating with it to create their homes. A mural of a boat heading towards the North Star is shown. Grendel, wearing civilian clothing, looks to it longingly, as if it is a place she desperately wishes to return to. Based on the imagery presented so far, this is likely the path back to Elfland, despite a lack of context on the positives during her life there, while the negatives are highlighted.
Galadriel.
Elrond.
From the manner they greet each other, it seems they have not seen one another in quite a while.
I hear it said that when you cross over you hear a song, one whose memory we all carry.
Is it common to go back and forth between Elfland and Earthland? Otherwise, how does he hear of such things? Is it a rumor based on intuition? If they do go to Elfland regularly, does that mean it is habitable?
And you are immersed in a light more intoxicating than any sensation in all of Middle-earth.
For all we know, he may have heard of this from an elf who had gone to Elfland and has since returned, in which case it is possible to have this interpretation.
When I was a child, it was the only feeling I knew.
Going back to the start, what provides light to Elfland, and what creates the light at the portal, letting them return to Elfland? World mechanics aside, how much time has passed in the time between her childhood and now? The span of the war was centuries, unspecified as it is, and she was searching for Sal for as long. The time that had passed could be anywhere from 400 to around 1,900 years, which is not an insignificant amount of time. This massive gap in time is not something that should be overlooked, because this speaks greatly to the scale of the war and the competency of the people therein. A war that lasts 200 years between orcs and an army of immortal elves in a foreign land can be excusable. Though if it lasts 900 years, the frequency of battles, resources, transportation, and the number of soldiers are all coming into question. If Grendel was looking for Sal for 200 years, it is within the range of acceptability when searching for someone without any clues. This is not the case, but let's assume it is for a moment. Because Earthland is quite large, and it takes time to hunt someone when there is nothing to start with. This brings up another issue of, if she found nothing in 200 years, there is nothing to be found. It is impressive how, even when caveats are given, the story still crumbles. If the time was extended to the extreme at 900 years, incompetency is elevated to outright inadequacy in even forming a cogent thought. The more time that has theoretically passed, the more the writing integrity of her character deteriorates till she is nothing more than a pile of dust on the floor. That said, it is for the best the writers are leaving things vague, because specificity would only serve to blow that dust along the wind till not even the idea of a character is left behind.
Look at you now.
This is usually a sign indicating exposition about one character from another is on the way, so the audience are brought up to speed.
Commander of the Northern Armies, warrior of the Wastelands.
If she is the commander of the Northern Armies, are the Wastelands also in the north, or are they elsewhere? In fact, what are the Wastelands? Based on the inadequacy of her command as shown, it would not be a surprise if most of her men died of attrition due to her callous orders rather than actual battle.
I half expected you to arrive caked in grime and mud.
He makes a light-hearted remark in the hopes of keeping the mood jovial so they could continue to build the rapport of the conversation.
This time frostbite and troll blood.
Not a fan of the humor, I suspect. This could be an attempt at highlighting the difference between their life experiences, where he is making light of her work unintentionally and she puts things back into perspective. However, the message would have been better communicated by her remaining quiet and letting her performance carry the message through, letting Ellie realize this on his own. This is nothing horrible, rather having a line here serves a purpose, as all lines do. Rather than this being an interaction that has been brought to a sobering point by the tactless comment, it is instead a moment of humiliation where Grendel puts Ellie in his place by highlighting what she went through. Dialogue helps to communicate what the character is going through. However, considering the wider scope of storycraft, a writer needs to also understand when not to have dialogue so that the intended message can be communicated effectively and clearly.
And no army.
Does this imply her army is stationed in the north, that they are all dead, or that she did not take her army on the expedition? In fact, how large is her army? What faction of elves do the northern armies, and by extension Grendel, belong to? Are they still in service? Will we ever get to see them?
Tell me everything.
This line leads to an odd transition between the scenes. Each shots are close-ups of the subjects, starting with the mark of Sal.
This mark's very existence proves Sauron escaped.
Does the mark disappear from existence altogether if Sal is killed? Is she updating him on the findings of her expedition, which is nothing much to go on as there is no way to tell when it was etched onto the anvil?
He's still out there. The question now is where?
The presentation of these few lines are odd, as if they were a part of a completely different scene that was originally far longer but was cut to its bare bones. What occurs is a sharp shift in the subject, location, and tone, while it acts as a transitional point to the next location in the conversation.
I intend to ask of the king a fresh company.
In a new location, both Ellie and Grendel continue the conversation. The hard pivots in the topic at this point further hints towards a longer scene between the two that was likely cut. Alternatively, it is possible the scenes are presented exactly as written. Either way, the writers were not efficient with the scene, and things needed to be cut to keep to an agreed runtime, or wrote things in a way the conversation hops from one topic to another while changing locations just as fast.
Supplies
you have only just arrived.
She started by stating her intention of asking the king for a new group to continue the search. Why she needs new troops are not stated, because if she had any self-reflection, she would recognize her command fell apart due to her driving her men to mutiny by going beyond the scope of their mission, extending the expedition by months, preventing them from properly resting, and finally losing over half her men to attrition. Ellie tries to bring the conversation back to them socializing rather than talking about work right away. This highlights the scarcity of her presence in civilization and the lack of time she spends with her people and her friend, when one needs to have good relations with those around to get what she wants. Right now she is demanding things she wants under the guise of
Shut it!
with the justification of no more proof than she has had for centuries. Ellie, being someone who values her greatly, for some reason, attempts to slow things down, to prevent her reputation among those who have the ability to give what she wants from deteriorating further. Grendel is callous and uncaring, while Ellie is desperate to maintain their relationship with a combination of diplomacy and vulnerability, as if he is trying to overcome his flaws to the best of his ability with the cards he had been dealt. The issue comes when considering the central character has displayed the behavior of a villain from the start, while the show is unaware of this fact. When there is such a disconnect present, it does not matter if the story is consistent, there is a fundamental breakdown in storytelling.
Must you speak of leaving again so soon?
You know very well why I must.
How long has she been back? How long did it take for her to travel from the Northlands to Linden? What were the soldiers doing while they were traveling with the woman who put their lives at risk? The soldiers would talk amongst themselves, especially when less than half of the initial group returns, which would sow discord among the soldiers who would be assigned to her, making them resistant to her from the start. His line is solely to her benefit, so she is properly rested that she would be able to repair some of the broken relationships in the interim and spending time with old friends. Her pushing forward regardless is akin to an obsession developed as a result of purposelessness outside of the goal she had taken on and formed her entire identity around.
There will be ample time later to discuss official matters.
Considering the enemy she has been chasing for hundreds of years has not been seen for nearly as long without a trace or a clue to their whereabouts, the continent, unless proven otherwise, based on the information that is at their disposal, after having searched for centuries, is at peace and is at a place where there is a lack of war. The purpose of a soldier following the end of a war is an interesting idea to explore. Peace can seem an odd thing to be a part of when so much of their lives was spent fighting. The lack of purpose, the structure of a regimented military life, and the freedom to make their own decisions. However, it was not until the end of the war and the remnants of the enemy are scattered and hunted that Grendel joined the fight. In fact, it was her brother's death that dragged her into the ring in the first place, meaning she never took part in any of the battles that took place during the war. She has more akin to someone who missed out on the opportunity to take part in the fighting and is now chasing it to bask in the glory by proxy. Violet Evergarden was raised to fight from a young age, becoming a threat on the battlefield as a child. She was captured by Dietfried Bougainvillea after she fought and killed many of his men while they were sailing at sea. Upon reaching home, he offered her to his brother, Gilbert, who, having seen the state of her, takes custody of her without a second thought. He is ordered to use her in battle by his superiors, though, wanting to treat her as if she were any other girl, tries to keep her out of battle as best he can, instead spending time teaching her to read, write, and to ultimately live without thinking of herself as a tool to be used by the military, expressing the love he feels for her as best he can in the hopes of showing her there is more to life than the military and fighting. Following the final battle at Intense, she is left an amputee with Gilbert being presumed dead. During her recovery, she is left without purpose, not only because she is no longer a participant in a war, but because the man she was taking orders from is no longer present, having instead to integrate into a civilian lifestyle. Unable to make the transition by herself, she wishes to be tossed aside like a tool without use. Claudia Hodgkins, who does not tell her of Gilbert's fate for fear it would drive her over the edge and dispel her will to live completely. While working at Hodgkins Postal Service, she starts in the delivery department, trying to find a place where she belongs. However, upon observing a letter being written, she wants to help others write letters as an auto-memory doll, wanting to understand what love means in the hopes of understanding what Gilbert was trying to tell her. She works hard, performing her duties and learning more about life in general, coming to understand the feelings she experiences that much more as a result, difficult as it is. When returning from an assignment, she discovers Gilbert is assumed dead since Intense. This causes her to break down and go in search of him, desperate to find him, leading her friends to worry about her, the revelation and influx of emotions driving her to suicide. Wanting to show their support, her friends write a letter to her, hoping she is doing well. And on this night she helps her co-worker finish delivering the day's letters. While talking to him, she rediscovers her will to live. From this point, she no longer wishes to be told what to do, and refuses to be a tool of war, being free to live and free to love, just as Gilbert once wished for her to. Violet's arc throughout the show highlights the harsh environment she grew up in, the peace she is struggling to embrace, and the regimented lifestyle that was beaten into her in the military as a child soldier. The narrative progresses steadily, breaking down the rigid exterior of the character and bringing to the surface the emotions that had been sealed within, burning her continually from the inside till she is brought to her breaking point and rebuilt anew. Based on the building blocks laid out with Grendel in Rings of Power, such an arc could have been constructed. However, that would be contrary to the perception of the character the show is trying to present.
I want to hear about you, your harrowing journey.
Why he described it as such is odd, particularly when considering the glee with which he said it. Had he left it at,
I want to hear about you,
it would have sufficed, where as it stands, he is more interested in the details of her journey, which implies he wants to talk official matters under the guise of friends catching up after a long time. This means he is trying to be friendly to hide his true purpose in this interaction, or is inept in following social cues.
Why, Elrond, you really have become a politician.
Considering she requires a politician with some clout in the Elven court, this is to her benefit, yet is acting like this is a negative. To clarify, being a politician is a negative by default, but considering what she wants, having a politician loyal to her is only a benefit. Furthermore, as a politician on her side, it is only valuable to tell him the details, or at least tell him enough so he is able to help if the situation is as dire as she thinks it is. Then again, she may have eroded all trust others have had in her due to the lack of evidence that has been found regarding Sal and his army of orcs.
You make it sound so grim.
Being a politician is a grim prospect, so the tone is understandable, just not from her.
I am not some courtier to be placated by idle flattery.
This line highlights she is not at all interested in being sociable and is instead looking for tools to use at her discretion. As this conversation progresses, the greater the mystery is as to how they became friends at all.
I demand to speak with the king directly.
This is in line with who Grendel is, making demands without offering anything in return. Why she may have come here is likely to force an audience with the king, and meeting Ellie is what she may have calculated as the best way to accomplish this goal. Meaning, she is here to use Ellie rather than maintain any form of friendship that may have existed.
You have made that plain, so I will be equally plain.
It took him long enough. It was a valiant effort from his part to try and have a civil conversation with her.
It was not your company who defied you out there, but rather you who defied the High King, by refusing to heed any limit placed upon you.
Yes, this is all true. Ellie is quickly climbing the ranks and challenging Thondir for the best character in the episode, and all they had to do was challenge her in any way.
In an act of magnanimity, he has chosen to honor your accomplishments.
What are her accomplishments exactly? All that's present are characters saying how impressive she is. However, when examining the evidence, she hasn't done anything besides being related to her brother who actually fought in the war.
Rather than dwell upon your insolence.
It is good to hear there are more characters pointing this out to her, though I suspect the writers want us to be on Grendel's side.
Test him again. You may find him less receptive than you might have hoped.
Considering everything she has done, this is an appropriate warning for her to receive.
Are you going to arrange an audience, or not?
Rather than taking stock of the potential consequences of her continued blind defiance and the death of her compatriots, she instead decides to intimidate Ellie.
If after the ceremony that is still your wish, you shall have it.
He takes this well. There are two possible reasons for this. One is that he is confident his friend would not do anything drastic, misplaced as that trust in her is, or he is already aware of what is to happen to her as a result of being close to the king. Based on the behavior of the two characters, it is likely to be the latter rather than the former. Returning to the Hobbit camp, one of the previously introduced hobbits is sharpening a knife. Meanwhile, Nori and the children arrive at camp.
She's returned!
As shown earlier, he is quite aloof and trusts in Nori a great degree.
How fare thee?
Well and well, father.
There are two things to look at here. The first is that he is her father, which explains why he trusts her as much as he does, warranted or otherwise. The other is Nori responding with well and well. Just as it was with Lenny, the answer is repeated. Is this a habit of the hobbits? If so, to what purpose?
Look at her! I know that down by the riverbank, did you?
Mm-hmm.
This is not a great issue, but why refer to a full bag as her? Also, that is quite a lot of snails she has collected. From his reaction, he finds it doubtful she found them all by the riverbank, leading to the idea that if she was at the riverbank, they would have been found. And him asking her this was his way of giving her the opportunity to come clean. If that is the case, this is yet another knock to Nori's character as she lied to her father.
You hear about the travelers?
Travelers?
This shows he has a good understanding of who she is, grabbing her attention with ease by appealing to what she is interested in. While her attention was wavering during the initial stages of the conversation, her attention is fixed on what her father is saying, taking in every word with great interest.
Hunters. 2 of them.
By drip-feeding information, he ensures not only is he telling her something she is interested in, but that she is listening to what he is saying.
Biggest great boulders, right up on that ridge.
This brings her to the peak of her excitement where she is hanging on his every word.
I can't believe I missed them.
This is consistent with what has been shown of her, eager to experience new things and witness things outside of the tribe. Again, this in itself is not something bad. It is the extremity to which this personality is taken that is the issue.
Maybe you ought to stick closer to home, that way you don't miss anything.
This brings them to the main topic where he makes clear, indirectly by using the hunters as the subject, that if she keeps looking outward, there is a good chance she would miss the beauty that could be found close to home. This is a good lesson to impart on his child. However, it is not clear if this is intentional or simply a matter of a broken clock being right. This can only be determined by what the writers choose to do with this idea, and that can only be proven by what is to come. As such, for now, it is an idea, nothing more. Praise will only come when examining how the idea is used, not for simply presenting it and leaving it unexplored. Regardless, she feeds her father a snail, and the show cuts to her emptying the pouch of snails into a bowl.
You went to the old farm again, didn't you?
The manner in which this is said implies Nori does this regularly. Is this as a result of not having found her in places close to camp? Why did she not go to check the farm if she suspected that is where she was? Why, instead, wait for her to return to camp when in the prior scene she was looking for both her and the children?
I was careful.
But the children might not be.
Intentional or not, there is a good idea here. Nori is focused on what she wants to the exclusion of those around her. A self-centered mindset to potentially be explored and challenged moving forward. Her responsibility to the children being brought up is also good, something she was not taking all that seriously.
Sorry, I didn't know.
That when looking after children she has to place their safety over what she wants? Given her age, she should know better. In isolation, this line presents the idea this is her first time looking after them, and her first action is to take them beyond the camp without telling any of the adults where they were going. There's inexperience, ignorance, ineptitude, and whatever Nori is right now. In Arcane Season 1, Episode 1, Welcome to the Playground, Vi leads Powder, Milo, and Clagor into the affluent Piltover to steal items from a workshop, an area they are unaccustomed to due to living in the far rougher zone. Making their way through in a manner that keeps them hidden from the enforcers, they arrive at their destination and look through the workshop stealing whatever they think is of value. Powder, while exploring, comes across a selection of highly volatile spherical materials and examines them. When the occupant of the workshop returns, they pack what they can and rush out, and in their hurry, Powder drops one of the spheres, causing an explosion, attracting the attention of the enforcers below. Having been found out, they are chased through the streets back to Zorn. Despite losing the enforcers along the way, they are confronted by another gang, wanting their loot, which leads to a brawl. One that leads to the loot being lost to both groups as a result of Powder being cornered. By the time they get back home, word has already reached Zorn about the commotion caused by the four, which grabs their guardian, Vander's, attention, questioning them on why they took such a dangerous job in the first place, starting by addressing the group as a whole, emphasizing the gravity of the situation they put themselves in, risking their freedom and the autonomy of Zorn as a whole, putting the delicate balance of their existence at risk. Vi pushes back against him, her young blood desiring the conflict that he himself took part in his younger days, but has since been tempered by wisdom. This prompts him to send the others out so he is able to speak to her directly. Once they leave, he highlights the weight of the responsibility on her shoulders when others are following her. That because she is their leader, they would follow her word without question, as they had done during their adventure. As a result, she is the one that has to take responsibility for what happens to them. This conversation highlights the fact she is the oldest of the group, her selfishness in following her desires over what is best when looking after the younger kids, and her responsibility to them. Her sheer recklessness with not only her own life but the lives of the others, and Vander reminding her of just how much sway she has over them and what it means to be their leader. Such is the potential of the conversation that could take place here between Nori and the grown-up, but said potential is not realized.
We never get hunters up here before the harvest, or wolves.
This line does provide some context. However, regardless of whether she knew about the hunters and wolves or not, there is no excuse for her actions. All the more so if this is not her first time looking after them and she continues to take them anyway. Also, what harvest? Based on the Book of Lenny and the camp made up of caravans, this sect of hobbits migrates regularly. So regularly they have documented the signs of the environment and predicting what is to come. Due to this lifestyle, this group is unsuited to be farmers as they need time to cultivate the land, plant the seed, water the plants, grow them to maturity, and then harvest the crop. A process as a result, travelers do not engage in. What they are and what they do are at odds with each other.
I wonder if there's trouble down south.
And what concern is that of yours, Eleanor Brandyfoot?
That was a good concern to bring up, all the more so because what is occurring currently are things highly unusual for this period of time. What is happening elsewhere should be of great concern so the camp of hobbits are prepared for any looming threats. Alternatively, this could be her way of telling her to leave such matters to the adults till she is older and more responsible.
Haven't you ever wondered what else is out there?
This is not the point Nori should be bringing up in response. Her appeal should be to the threats closing in on them, instead of appealing to the idea of what may be beyond the scope of the camp, highlighting a desire to explore rather than paying attention to the threats on their doorstep.
How far the river flows, or where the sparrows learn the new songs they sing in spring.
To long for things beyond your boundaries is not inherently bad. In fact, this desire is often used as a catalyst that leads to further adventure in many a yarn. The issue here is the inconsistency regarding the topic of conversation. It starts with Nori's whereabouts, then her taking the children out, to the risks presenting themselves, questioning why she is wanting to know, and coming to Nori yearning for adventure. This flow in the conversation may have worked, provided time is given to each topic so they are all well explored, and the transitions occur organically rather than having it be presented as if they are listed to be brought up in the form of a conversation without anything else being done. This highlights a lack of ability in writing and an unwillingness to properly explore a topic before moving on, rushing through them by giving lip service without any substance to support it all. Under a skilled writer like the lads on House of the Dragon or Mike Flanagan, each of these topics would have lasted significantly longer while being efficient, and the story would be better for it.
I can't help but feel there's wonders in this world, beyond our wandering.
Cute wordplay. This verbalizes her desires as shown so far. The use of wandering is curious because to wander is to travel aimlessly. Considering the locations they travel to are likely in the Book of Lenny, this is a clan that does not wander, but travels with purpose. Just because something sounds nice, it does not mean it makes sense.
I've told you countless times.
This behavior is nothing new for Nori, yet despite this knowledge, they are willing to let her look after the children. It's like asking Balotelli not to get booked.
Okay, I understood none of that.
Elves have forests to protect, dwarfs their mines, men their fields of grain.
The different roles of the races found in Earthland according to the hobbits are interesting. It's nothing major, and were it to be cut nothing would change, but it is good to know that the writers are capable of writing something that does not break upon further inspection.
Even trees have to worry about the soil beneath their roots.
It is unclear if she is referring to actual trees or if she is talking about the ants.
But we Harfoots are free from the worries of the wide world.
They are not, because even if they themselves try to avoid the troubles of the world, they are a part of it. Regardless of whether it relates to them or not, they take note of the things they need to look out for, as proven by the Book of Lenny. They worry about their survival just like every other race. Were they not, they wouldn't bother to hide from threats.
We are but ripples in a long, long stream.
Even ripples have their part to play in the grand scheme of things, and by virtue of the fact she admits as much, directly contradicts her statement of being free of it all. This line implies that worries of the world does have an impact on them, minuscule as they may be.
Our paths set by the passing seasons.
This indicates they do indeed travel with the seasons, which makes the idea of them being farmers all the more ludicrous. Also, why are so many of them overweight? And why is there such a disparity in the age groups? The two extremes of hobbits have either seen too many moons or too few. Additionally, if they migrate as often as they do, would it not be prudent to not be overweight so they are not held back during their cross-continental travels? Again, what the writing is telling me and what the show is showing me are two very different things.
Nobody goes off trail and nobody walks alone.
By telling her this, it could refer to the idea they do not stray from the path when traveling, or that they are expected to be a certain way, else they would be ostracized. Nobody walking alone is a nice sentiment, particularly in a world where they are not at the top of the food chain. This could also be a collective mindset where any individuality is snuffed out for the sake of the community.
No offense, but it sounds like some fucking commie gobbledygook.
We have each other. We're safe. That is how we survive.
There is the old adage of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and the hobbits have clearly found a system that works. That said, if things do not evolve, they become monotonous, which can lead to complacency. Creativity is discouraged and different thought processes are forced out.
Go on. Help your father.
Nori has so far not indicated any desire to go help her father. Yet the way the line is delivered by the older hobbit gives the impression this has been something Nori has been itching for during this conversation.
That's the problem. You see, we are supposed to be round.
I beg your pardon? He is explaining to a hobbit far older than him that a wheel is meant to be round. A wheel. Something this clan has been using for, allegedly years, in order to migrate across the land by putting them on their caravans is meant to be round.
What, are you retarded?
Having been given permission to leave, Nori stands and walks to him, but not before giving her mother a berry.
These most valiant of warriors kneel here before us, victorious.
This is likely the ceremony Ellie brought up earlier. Though how much time has passed since? Is it the same day? From how it's edited, that seems to be the case. Time has simultaneously passed and not passed to allow maximum flexibility for the writers.
Though Morgoth fell an age ago, some feared a new evil might arise from his shadow.
A new evil did rise. The prologue said as much with an accompanying voiceover. Her brother chased after and was killed by Sal. Or is he implying this is the version of history created by Grendel so she can continue searching in the hopes of finding any enemy?
So for centuries now, these soldiers have swept across crag and crevice.
Has this particular group of elves been searching for centuries? If so, how often would they return to rest and recuperate? How often has Grendel broken the commands of the king in favor of extending the search to satisfy herself? Having searched for as long as they have, it is very likely they have literally searched every crag and crevice. In addition, Ellie is mouthing the king's words, referring back to the speech he was working on. The issue here is that he never finished it and handed it over to the king incomplete.
Washing away the last remnants of our enemy like a spring rain over the bones of a spoilt carcass.
Then what the fuck are you talking about, man?
By all evidence, the enemy had not been seen in centuries, by anyone. If anything, this is a way of trying to communicate to the people, who they themselves believe the threat has ended, that what Grendel was doing with the men under her command was indeed worth the time, effort and resources.
And now at last, they return to us in triumph.
Can someone be triumphant if they did not defeat anything? This is the equivalent of heaping praise on something for merely existing.
For they have proven beyond any doubt that our days of war are over.
And they needed centuries to figure that out. The elves are not presented in a manner that is all that intelligent.
Today, our days of peace begin.
It would be interesting to see what the rest of the elves think of all this. Do they believe any of this, or are they simply indulging Grendel and putting up with this farce? Grendel looks to the king menacingly with all the threat of a constipated kitten, refusing to bow in order for him to place the wreath on her. This resistance is picked up on by Ellie. Only Ellie, because while there are bodies surrounding them, they are of no consequence, and so the reactions of the elves all around are ignored. It's not like seeing what they think of the situation would be interesting or anything. Considering the patience the king has displayed in tolerating Grendel till now, her audacity in giving him the stink eye when she has thoroughly proved herself wrong is oddly impressive. She does eventually relent.
And, as a measure of our gratitude,
based on what the king has had to put up with, this is either ironic or will be something that is to rid him of this perpetual headache.
these heroes shall be granted an honor unrivaled in all our lore.
Bunch of hookers and cocaine.
Why call it lore?
They will be escorted to the Grey Havens and granted passage across the sea to dwell for all eternity.
So Elfland is indeed habitable. Does that mean the sun that is creating light and warmth in Earthland is also the same sun that breathes life into Elfland? Which would go on to imply that it exists in the same plane of existence. However, that then raises the question of what the light and the portal is. Is it a gate that keeps unwanted visitors out, or something else entirely?
In the Blessed Realm, the far west.
This radiates an effort to waste as much time as humanly possible while trying to sound far more highbrow than it actually is. It could be that this speech highlights Ellie's inexperience in such things, and that he has to spend more time to improve on his ability before he is allowed into the Elf Council.
The undying lands of Valinor.
The land of the elves, where the first light originated, returning from a war that was waged for centuries, to the place they once called home, and will once again call home.
At last, they are going home!
Oh my god, just fucking end!
The soldiers receive applause from those looking on. Ellie is particularly happy about this. Maybe he wants Grendel, who is displeased by this turn of events, to leave too. Both Grendel and Ellie look to each other and he realizes she is not happy. Considering her eagerness to return to her crusade, this really should not be a surprise to him. With regards to Grendel, the more pain the better, because I want to...